Welcome to Beneath the Bible, where we're helping you dig deeper and uncover the world beneath the sacred book. Today we're in part 2 of our exploration of serpent imagery in the ancient Near East, and how understanding this imagery can help us better understand the Bible. If you haven't yet, check out part 1 here, or at the link in the description, where we explore the negative dimensions of serpent imagery. Now, today, we're going to look at the positive dimensions of serpent imagery in the ancient Near East.
Danger and chaos are perhaps the most obvious associations with snakes, but in the ancient Near East, snakes could also be associated with healing and protection. In fact, what makes snakes protective is their dangerous nature, which could be employed by humans to ward off illness and threats. You may recognize this symbol of two serpents entwined around a pole called a caduceus from your last visit to the doctor. Today, caduceus is a common symbol associated with medicine, but its history goes back through the Greco-Roman world all the way to ancient Mesopotamia, around 4000 BC. In Mesopotamia, as well as Egypt, there were deities and rituals for healing and protection which involved associations with serpents. This example is associated with the Mesopotamian god Ningishzida and dates to around 2100 BC. This god was sometimes depicted as a human with a snake head, and this vase dedicated to Ningishzida shows the hybrid creature called Mushushu flanking the caduceus. A drawing makes it a little bit easier to see here. Ningishzida was associated with the underworld and vegetation. He was not a nefarious deity though, and was even cited as a protector god of Gudea, a king of Lagash, a city in Mesopotamia. Snakes also appear frequently in Egyptian art. The most frequent depiction is what is called a uraeus. This is an upright cobra, which is the literal meaning of the word uraeus, and is associated with the goddess Wadjet. This goddess is also associated with a stylized eye, known as the Eye of Horus, and was the protector goddess of Lower Egypt. As the protectress of Lower Egypt, her uraeus symbol came to be associated with the protection of all Egypt, and in particular with the pharaoh who protected Egypt. The uraeus appeared on the crown worn by the pharaoh and by some of the Egyptian gods. Eventually, the pharaohs became associated with the sun god Ra, and the uraeus was understood to protect both the pharaohs and Ra. The uraeus was also a common motif on scarabs and amulets. Uraeus amulets were common, and uraei on scarabs were thought to have an apotropaic or warding effect. The dangerous quality of the snake was harnessed on behalf of the wearer for his or her protection. It has even been suggested snakes appearing on ceramic vessels were there to protect the contents of the jar. In the Bible, we see the association of snakes with both danger and healing in Numbers 21, when God sends fiery serpents among the Israelites in the desert as punishment for their complaining. Many Israelites are bitten and die, and they appeal to Moses to save them. In response, God instructs Moses to make an image of a serpent and set it on a pole, so that any person who is bitten by a snake can look at the image and live. This healing serpent functioned much like the Mesopotamian caduceus. Here we see both the dangerous and healing qualities of the snake depicted in the same event, and we also see the final dimension of snake imagery that we'll talk about in this video. The association of snakes with healing and protection leads to our final meaning of snake imagery: rejuvenation and immortality. The observation of snakes shedding their skin led people to make these associations. The best example of this association comes from the Mesopotamian Epic of Gilgamesh. This collection of myths centers on Gilgamesh, the king of Uruk. He was 2/3 divine, having wisdom and strength, and only lacked immortality. Over the course of the narrative, Gilgamesh's friend and companion Enkidu dies, and Gilgamesh goes in search of immortality. Naturally, he encounters all kinds of exciting obstacles and adventures, and ultimately faces a final challenge where he must defy sleep. Gilgamesh, however, fails this challenge. As a consolation prize, Gilgamesh is told of a plant which grows on the bottom of the sea, which can restore his youth. Gilgamesh retrieves the plant, but before he can consume it, a snake eats it instead. In the scene where the snake eats the restorative plant, Gilgamesh was bathing and the snake came out of the water and carried off the plant. Going back, it shed its slough. In Mesopotamian lore, this explains why snakes can shed their skin and seemingly retain their youth. We also see this association in Egyptian art, where one way of expressing eternity was the image of a serpent biting its own tail. If any creature would know about not dying and retaining life, it would be a serpent.
Snakes are depicted in many ways in the ancient Near East, and these various depictions can carry multiple and even contradictory meanings. When we see depictions of snakes, we need to recognize that they can mean one thing or many things, and contradictory meanings can even appear in a single depiction. Generally, snakes have either positive or negative attributes, though sometimes both kinds of attributes are present at the same time. This doesn't mean that every depiction or literary appearance of a snake carries every possible symbolic meaning. Each instance should be evaluated and understood on its own. When we do that, we see several common themes in the snake imagery of the ancient Near East. Now, keep in mind, this is not a comprehensive list. We haven't even gotten into serpents in the Canaanite conceptual and symbolic world, but there's enough here to help us tackle some serpent imagery in the Bible. First, understanding this imagery helps us better understand the serpent in the Garden of Eden. Now, this creature would not have been seen by the authors of Genesis as the devil in snake form. This association developed much later, although we can see how it developed by connecting the deception of the snake to the deceptiveness of the devil. Instead, the serpent was probably seen as a magical being, perhaps associated with chaos, or at the very least with mischief, like the snake that took Gilgamesh's plant. Second, we see not only symbolic but also linguistic connections with snakes in the story of the serpents in the desert in Numbers 21. The Hebrew words for serpent and bronze are very similar, Nahash for serpent and Nehoshet for bronze. The name of the bronze serpent that Moses made was Nehustan. This object remained in Israel's possession until the time of Hezekiah. 2 Kings 18:4 tells us that the Israelites burned incense to it as if making an offering before a god, so Hezekiah broke it into pieces as part of his purification of Israel's worship. Further linguistic connections with snakes run from Moses and Aaron through much of the Old Testament. Moses and Aaron were Levites, and Levites seem to have lots of names associated with the word snake or Nahash. Examples include Ir-Nahash, Nahash, Nashon, the brother-in-law of Aaron, Nehushta, Saraphah. Another biblical connection with snakes is found in beings called seraphim. The seraphim are described as flying serpents with 6 wings. Similar beings appear in other places in the ancient Near East, such as this 6-winged goddess from Syria. The word seraph means to burn, and burning is often how the uraeus was thought to provide protection. This understanding could come from the burning sensation of venom, especially the venom of the spitting cobra. Finally, we see the association of snakes with chaos and disorder employed to condemn the Israelites' behavior. Several passages make reference to snake charming, a practice that was known in the ancient Near East. In Jeremiah 8:17, God says, "For behold, I am sending serpents against you, adders for which there is no charm, and they will bite you, declares the Lord." The implication is that God's punishment will be severe and inescapable. There will be no protection from these snakes, like the protection the Israelites' ancestors found from the snakes in the desert. Another example is Psalm 58, which says that the wicked are like a deaf cobra that stops up its ear, so that it does not hear the voice of charmers, or a skillful caster of spells. Only cobras will follow the rhythm and movement of a charmer, so a deaf cobra would refuse and in fact be unable to follow the direction of its master. It would be dangerous and untamable, an agent of chaos, yet one from whom God could provide protection and deliverance. Thanks for joining us for this Beneath the Bible video. If you're interested in learning more about this topic, we've included some references and resources in the description below. If you haven't yet, be sure to check out part 1 of this topic, where we explore the negative dimensions of snake imagery in the ancient Near East. If you enjoyed this video and you want to see more content like it, be sure to give this video a like, subscribe to our YouTube channel, and check out our website, beneaththebible.com. If you learned something new today, take a minute to share this video with your friends, and until next time, keep digging.